Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dana and I am so excited to be sharing my love of makeup and beauty with you all. Today I wanted to try out the perfect makeup tag that was created by Morgan Turner and Patty Alonso. I will link their channels below if you'd like to check them out. The tag has 10 questions talking about my perfect makeup. Now, my perfect makeup changes seasonally, so for a lot of these I have more than one in the same category, but I tried my best to narrow it down as best as I could. And of course, my perfect makeup is going to be very different from your perfect makeup because everybody's got such different preferences and skin types and skin tones, and that's totally okay. So if you'd like to see what my 10 perfect products are, just keep on watching. Question number 1 is, which primer creates my perfect base? Now, this is a tie, and it sort of depends on whether my skin is feeling extra oily or extra textured that day. If it is extra oily, my preference is the Milk Makeup Hydro Grip Primer. I really, really like this stuff. It's very, very good for avoiding adding any sort of slipperiness to the skin without dehydrating the skin, because when you dehydrate oily skin, it's just gonna get oilier. So this is a really, really good option for keeping my skin looking smooth and matte without drawing the moisture out of it. If my skin is feeling extra textured, I usually reach for the Rare Beauty Always and Optimus Pore Diffusing Primer. I just have a little mini here. I really like this stuff. I think it works really, really well to kind of take down some of the excess texture that I have on my skin. I had really bad hormonal acne for a little while there, and I still do get acne scars that are a little bit raised, and this helps to just sort of smooth out that texture a bit. As a lot of my fellow oily skin owners will know, you usually get some pretty large pores around your nose or in your T-zone, and that primer really helps with that too. So those are my 2 perfect primers depending on how my skin is feeling that day. Question number 2 is, which foundation creates the perfect base? And again, I have 2. And this is really dependent on whether it is kind of hot weather, spring, summer, or cool weather, fall, winter, as to how oily my skin is. In the summer, if my skin is really oily, I reach for the Beauty Blender Bounce Foundation. I don't hear a lot of people talking about this, and I keep thinking it's gonna get discontinued, but they're still selling it online, so I don't know. But I really like this. The packaging is kind of weird and it's tough to clean, but on my skin, this stuff looks amazing. It sits very smooth, it's really, really soft. It's a great color match for me, and it looks like skin, but just a little bit better, you know? I think this is a really good foundation, especially when my skin is pretty oily, and it's not a pure matte foundation either. It's like a soft kind of demi-matte, so it doesn't dry out my skin or make it look like flaky. It's just a really, really good matte foundation. In the winter, when my skin is a little bit drier, I tend to reach for a more hydrating foundation. I still usually will put a mattifying primer under this just because my skin is still a little bit oily in the winter, but that is the Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Hydrating Concealer. This has a little sticker on it because I am trying to use it up. It is so close to being done. This is actually the second tube of this I have used fully, which is pretty rare for me. I don't tend to rebuy the same foundation over and over, but I do love this. I like the shade. It's a very good color match for my skin tone. I really like that it's not a luminous foundation. It doesn't look wet on the skin. It's just soft and hydrating, but it's not a flat matte. You can powder over this stuff and use a matte primer underneath to kind of balance it out if you have more oily skin, or just use it on its own or with a hydrating primer if you've got more dry skin. It's a really, really flexible foundation, and that's what I like about it. So this is my winter pick and this is my summer pick. For the next couple questions, you're gonna start noticing a trend. I promise it's not a sponsored video. I truly, genuinely believe these are my perfect products. But question number 3 is, what is your perfect concealer? And for me, that is the Fenty Pro Filter Concealer. I have mine in the shade 110. I do get my concealer to match my foundations. I don't do them lighter, but there is actually a lighter shade than this. I think there's 2 lighter shades than this. That's one of the things that absolutely amazes me about Fenty's complexion range. I am almost never not the lightest shade. It's very rare that I am not the lightest shade in a foundation range, and I think I'm 3rd lightest in these guys, which is awesome because if I want to have more, if I want a lighter concealer to kind of highlight with, I actually can get that in Fenty, and I can't get that in a lot of ranges. But regardless, this is actually my shade. I love this. It's got a really, really nice coverage without being heavy or cakey. It blends out very well. It blends with any foundation I've ever used it with, although I do use it a lot with my Fenty foundation. I love it. And it's neither matte nor dewy. It's a very satin finish, so it looks very natural. It looks very skin-like. I really like this. I am just about done this, actually. I have taken out the little stopper inside to try and get the last few drops out of this. Once I have finished my move and I'm in the UK, I might repurchase this because I'm just about out, but I'm gonna try and use it up before I go. Question 4 is which powder gives my perfect blur? And again, that is going to go to the Fenty Pro Filter Loose Powder. I have mine in the shade Lavender. It is the one that's almost white. They do have lots of different shades, which is really, really awesome, and I like that there's undertones in the powder too. It's not just like a light, medium, dark. I think that's really handy, but mine is the light shade, it's lavender. I really like this stuff. I think it sets my foundation really, really well. It works super well with that hydrating foundation, but I can use it with more matte foundations too, and I find it doesn't get cakey, it doesn't get heavy. I just think overall it's a really, really good powder. I've seen quite a few people talk about how they don't like the scent of it. I like it. I don't find it's overly strong. I think it kind of smells like baby powder. And once it's on my skin, I cannot smell it anymore, unlike sort of that Too Faced peach powder, which smelled like peaches all day. I couldn't handle it, but if you are sensitive to scents, keep that in mind. This does have a bit of a scent. I don't mind the scent. I think it's nice and fresh, but it is there. Number 5 is which bronzer has the perfect undertone? And being someone who is very, very pale and very cool toned, I sometimes struggle to find a bronzer that doesn't look too yellow on me, and that is a real challenge. I have 2 or 3 bronzers that I think work well for my skin tone, and it was a hard toss-up to figure out which one I preferred, which one I thought was my perfect one. But I am going to have to give it to the Fenty Beauty Sunstalker bronzer. I have the powdered version in Into Sun, which I believe is the lightest shade. It's just like a really nice, like, it's neither warm nor cool. It's a very, very neutral kind of tone, which works really well on my skin because it doesn't look heavy and like muddy like some really, really cool tone ones can, but it also doesn't look overly warm and stand out really strongly against my skin like a lot of the warm toned ones do. I think it's a really, really good undertone for me, and I actually really do love the product. I think it blends out really well. I think it's very smooth and it's easily buildable. It's not too intense at the first go, although I have seen some people say that theirs was pretty patchy, so maybe there's different sort of formulas floating around, but I like mine and this is my favorite bronzer. Number 6 is which blush is your perfect shade? This is a hard one because the shade that's probably correct for me is not necessarily my favorite shade. My favorite shade is the Nabla Skin Glazing in Lola. This is a pretty deep pink, and technically, if you want to look like it's a natural flush, my skin tone shouldn't wear something this dark. But I don't like following makeup rules because I think they're stupid and made up anyway, and I like to do what I like. So I am a big fan of bold blush, and I think this is absolutely gorgeous. It's that perfect satin, not shimmery but not matte kind of texture. It's got a really beautiful undertone to it where it works with a lot of skin tones. I think you could probably wear this if you were much deeper than me or lighter than me. If you were warm tone or cool tone, I think this blush would work really well. For me, this is absolutely my favorite blush shade that I own right now. I have far too many blushes because I recently discovered my love for blush and then ended up buying way too many. And I actually find I have to remind myself that I have other blushes and I need to stop using just this one, but I love this blush. If I had a smaller collection, I would go back and buy more shades of this, but I'm trying to like reduce, so I'm going to wait, but this is definitely my perfect blush. Number 7 is which highlighter has your perfect finish, and for that one I have to give it to the Odin's Eye Norns Collection Web of Destiny highlighter. That one is the one that just looks like that. I'm hoping that's showing up, that you can see there's sort of like a crisscross pattern to it. This stuff is just remarkable. It simultaneously looks very smooth and subtle, but also wet looking. When you turn your head, you just get a blinding, beautiful, beautiful highlight, but there's no glitter. It's not sparkly, it's just very, very reflective. I'm hoping maybe you can see, even just in the pan, it's almost mirrored. Oh, it's just gorgeous. I have never used a highlighter like this in my life. It is a very, very almost cream texture. It's a little bit more creamy than like the ColourPop Super Shock highlighters, but not quite as creamy as a true cream. Like, it's a powder, but it's very creamy. And again, if I did not already have a ton of highlighters that I'm trying to reduce the size of my collection, I would absolutely go buy the other 2 shades of this. This is one of my favorite purchases of 2021 so far. I love this. Number 8 is, which lippy is your perfect formula? I think the original question said lipstick, but I am not overwhelmingly a lipstick person. I prefer glosses. So I have just changed it to lippy because my answer was going to be a gloss. And I promise this is my last Fenty product, but that is the original Fenty Gloss Bombs. I have Fussy here. I also have had a few of the other shades as well. I think they're all equally good. Fussy's just the first one that I grabbed out of my bag. I also like the creams, but the original Gloss Bombs are the better ones. I love these. I could wear these all day, every day, and be perfectly happy. You can layer them over a lip liner if that's the kind of thing you like to do, so you can get a lot more color variety out of them. Or you can just wear them as like a really simple sheer lip all the time. I absolutely adore these. They are moisturizing. They don't dry out my lips like I find a lot of glosses do. They're very comfortable to wear. They're not sticky at all, but they're smooth. They've got a lot of shine. These are my perfect lip gloss. I love them. Number 9 is, which palette has your perfect shimmers? This was a really tough one because eyeshadow is one of my favorite makeup products. I have the most number of products in my eyeshadow collection of any category in my makeup collection. And it was tough to narrow this down, but I have to give it to the Glaminatrix U Beauty palette. These shimmers are insane. I don't know of any palette that I have in my collection that rivals these for shimmers. This color down here, G'day, might be my favorite shimmer I own. It's probably my favorite shimmer that I own. These are absolutely phenomenal shimmers. The mattes in here are also really good. This is an overall very solid palette, but the shimmers are just out of this world amazing. There's quite a few duochromes and multichromes in here, but there are some more basic, like Whoop Whoop down here is like a simple yellow shimmer, but they're just gorgeous. I absolutely love the shimmers in here. I wish I had discovered Glaminatrix earlier because these are insane. And if this is the quality that the rest of their shimmer line is like, ooh, to me, this was worth every penny. I absolutely love those shimmers. They're insane. And number 10 is, which palette has your perfect color story? Now, again, I hummed and hawed over this one for a very long time. This was a really hard decision to make, but it should come as no surprise to anyone who's watched my channel before. My choice is going to be the Kaleidos and Angelica Nyqvist Club Nebula palette. This is not necessarily the palette that I would consider like every day, and it's not even the palette that I would say, oh, like if I could only have one palette, it would be this one. It's the palette where there is absolutely nothing in this palette that I would change. I think this color story is perfect. I don't think there's a single shade in here that doesn't work. I don't think there's a single shade in here that doesn't fit the theme, or a single shade in here that doesn't go with the rest of the palette. The color story is so perfect. It's so well thought out. Most palettes that I own, even the ones that are my absolute favorites, even things like Soft Glam, there's 1 or 2 shades that I would change, and I don't think there's a single shade in here that I would change, which means this is my perfect color story. I just absolutely adore this palette. I think it is absolutely phenomenal. I am just so glad to own it. I really am. I actually discovered Angelica Nyqvist after I bought this palette, I bought it first and then found out who she was. So I definitely didn't buy it, and because of my allegiance to her, and I definitely don't recommend it because of my allegiance to her. I recommend it because it's so good. I adore this palette, and even if this had nothing to do with Angelica, I absolutely would still recommend it. It's phenomenal, and it is definitely my perfect color story. So there you have it. That is all 10 questions of the perfect makeup tag. Again, I am going to tag Morgan Turner and Patty Alonso in the description box. If you haven't seen their channels, I'm sure you have, they're much bigger than me. So if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I would love to see you back for my next one. Bye.